All right, I threw in a bonus. We're actually going to talk about perlbrew as well, since it kind of fits in the same domain. Welcome. No problem at all. Just getting started. Okay, so dependency isolation, my wife asked me tonight, what are you talking about tonight? I said, dependency isolation. What's that? Well, so when you write a program, you have modules that you might use from cpen or elsewhere. Those are your dependencies. You depend on those for your program to work correctly. Dependency not isolation means that your dependencies are all over the place and they might conflict. If you have modules that, or programs or projects that you're working on that require the same module and you need to upgrade a version of that module but the other one's not ready to upgrade, then you get in all kinds of problems. So dependency isolation is where you group per project or in some way your dependencies so that they don't conflict. So for tonight, we're going to talk about your system Perl. That's the Perl that comes on your laptop or on your VM or on your server, wherever your development environment is. We'll talk a minute about ad hoc dependency management. perlbrew, plenv, plenv. I don't know how to pronounce it. I would just say plenv, but it's probably a more correct way to say that. And Carton. So system Perl. This is very easy. You just install your Perl modules as root, right? You sudo, or whatever you do to get down to root, and you say cpan dash install module name, something like that. Cpan p. What's that? Or you install them as packages, exactly, yeah. And they go onto the system, and now you have your module. This is really the easiest way to go. And if you only have one project on one VM, it's not a bad way to go. I did this for many years. It works fine. However, if you've got multiple projects that you're working on, using your system Perl starts to look something like this. Say project 1, you've got any event and Beanstalk. And project 2, you've got some Modulicious and MySQL going on. And project 3, you've got some DVD SQLite and some JSON stuff. All of those modules now are installed into the same directory on your system. Whether you did this through cpan or through packages, it's under user local bin or user local lib, Perl 5, whatever your hierarchy is. But they're all messed up in there now. And if you needed to share, say, JSON between two projects, and a new version of JSON comes out with a feature that you need, but the other one, maybe it's got a backward breaking compatible change. Now now what do you do? So, well, here's what you do. If you're like me, you create what's called an ad hoc environment. This is as old as Perl 5 itself. You have to build your own thing, and it's not too hard. You say Perl makefile, and you give it prefix as a command line option. And in this, we're installing it into opt_perl in your home directory. So you don't have to be root, so that's nice. And then you have to set your Perl 5 lib environment variable, and then you can run your application. So that looks like this. So you have your system Perl that stays nice and clean. You can upgrade and downgrade your operating system without really worrying about if it's going to mess up or blow away your modules. So that's great. You have a project, a directory for every project, and all of your dependencies go in there. This is nice. There's even cleaner ways to do this with things like cpanm and local lib. So you don't have to do the Perl makefile thingy. cpanm supports the local lib, which is another module that essentially sets your prefix and your Perl 5 lib for you. So that it makes it easy that way. I love this. I love this one. Nathan Fillion's awesome. Okay, so that's how I feel when I hear about ad hoc systems, because I did it for so many years and I got bitten so many times. The problems with ad hoc systems is that they become messy, and you can't duplicate that. If somebody else needs to work on your project, You're telling them, okay, I mean, you're essentially going over to their desk and helping them set it up because there's no way to duplicate what you've done that took you 5 years to build this intricate little directory hierarchy of Perl modules. So the next step up in dependency isolation management is perlbrew. Perlbrew, it really is incredible. It gives you named environments. You can have multiple versions of Perl. So this is once you've installed perlbrew, which is extremely easy. I'll show you in the next slide. Here are 3 commands that you would use every day. Actually, the install one you would only use once in a while because that installs a new Perl for you. So if you say perlbrew install 5.16.2, and you wait, however long it takes to build a Perl on your VM, maybe 10, 20 minutes, something like that if you're running all the tests. At the end of that, you will have Perl 5.16.2, and you don't have to be root to do this. You can do this as a user. In fact, you should do it as a user so that your system Perl stays clean, you're not messing up anyone else's environment. If you're sharing a VM or sharing a dedicated server, you can run it as root, and everyone gets the benefit from this installed base here. perlbrew lib. Lib is a command that perlbrew has that creates sort of like, it's kind of like your project directory, as we were talking about earlier. You would do a lib for every project. So you'd say project 1, project 2. And what it does is under the 5.16.2, actually it's on top of the 5.16.2, but separate from is you get this special hierarchy of your modules. And then once you're in there, you could then install modules using cpan-m or cpan-p or even cpan, whatever your favorite is. And it wouldn't conflict with, say, project 2. It keeps everything nice. You share the 5.16.2 base, and then you get your own hierarchies that are really great. This last command, perlbrew use, is you're telling your shell, I want to use this hierarchy. And so once you've typed that into your shell resets itself and sets all the environment variables correctly. So now from here on out, you're using that project. You're in that project directory. Anything you install goes into that project directory. You don't have to do anything special. It looks and feels just like everything was installed in the right spot on the system itself. So this is how you install it. That top curl line there, super easy. This is probably the easiest one to install of the ones that we'll be talking about today. And then you copy, there's one line that you copy and paste into your, whatever shell you're using, Z shell or whatever. Shouldn't use C shell, by the way. And that's it. Really easy. And this is kind of what it looks like here. So you have your shell. perlbrew is this layer that fits in between your shell and the perls that you'll use. And you can type perlbrew off, and you get your system Perl back if you need to get your system Perl for whatever reason. Perlbrew switch actually sets something inside a sourced shell file so that the next time you log in, or anyone else logs in, that will be the current perlbrew environment. It's great. So you can have multiple versions of Perl, and in each of those versions you can have multiple libs, libraries. It's nice. So
you can even have multiple versions of 5.20.1, one compiled with threads, one without.
That's right. Yeah, you can do some pretty amazing stuff with it. Okay, so we're going to jump onto, actually I'm going to do this. Get my perlbrew shell. Okay, so perlbrew list. These are I've already installed 5.16.3, 5.21, and made a couple projects here. None of them are active because you would see a star next to it. So if I say Perl, let's see, Perl-v grep build. 5.18.2, which you see is not one of the ones there. This is my system Perl. So if I want to use, let's make a new directory, project 1. And I can say, it doesn't matter where I am. I can say, perlbrew use Perl 521 project 1. Now I'm using Perl 20.1. And I can move into my project 1, and it's all, so I can do this. I can cpnm, let's see. I've already installed that one. Perl. So here's, you can see here what the what happens. This is what perlbrew does, is it modifies the ink path and adds the directories that where you've installed 521. Pretty simple trick, but it works really well. So let me think. Is there anything else about perlbrew that's cool? I don't think so. That's pretty good. So we'll jump back to our presentation here. That was our demo. One of the things, there are some problems with perlbrew. And one of them is if you're actually using multiple projects pretty regularly, and you forget to use a different project in perlbrew, and you install a module or something like that, now you've just messed up one of your environments. Another thing that doesn't work really well with perlbrew is that you can't version it. You still have the same problem of if someone else wants to work on your project, you still have to tell them, okay, here's the modules you need to install. I mean, it's still simple for them to install them, just cpnm, whatever version. But there's no, that I know of, there's no clean way to say, just run this one command and you get an environment just like mine. So it's not repeatable, can't control it version-wise, and it doesn't really help with deployment. There's no way to package up a perlbrew environment and send it up to a server. So that's perlbrew. We're going to talk about plenv, plenv, I don't know how to say it. Plenv is much simpler than perlbrew. It is not for managing hierarchies of libraries. It's just for switching Perl versions. It's like Ruby's RBM, if you've ever used Ruby. Very simple, and you can set it globally. You can say plenv global Perl version, and now forever, that's the version of Perl that you'll be, when you log in. It kind of does a little shell switching stuff, inserts something into a little file that gets sourced by your bash, or whatever your shell RC file is. And this is and per directory Perl versioning. This is one of the killer features of plenv, in my opinion, is you can make a directory and echo the version of Perl you want to into a file called .perl version, and then anytime you change into that directory, you'll be using that Perl. So you can have 20 versions of Perl on your system. Every directory gets its own. You don't have to worry about, did I switch versions of Perl? Because it's just done, because once you've CD'd into the directory, boom.
Set up the libraries delivered.
Oh, we'll get to that in a minute. Yep. This is pure bash. There is no cpan component of it. There's no Perl in it at all. It's just a bunch of little shell scripts and things, shims. So don't look for it on cpan. Look for it on GitHub. And it is not compatible with perlbrew. They would fight. I don't know what would happen. Probably that's like crossing the streams. Just don't want to try it. To install it, you can use brew if you're using OS 10. I use just the GitHub instructions, which are clone the repo into a directory and add a file, or add a line to your bash RC file. It's almost as easy as the perlbrew method. Or it's also available in many packaging systems on Linux. And I think it's also on FreeBSD's package system. So so this is my opinion at this point. After you install plenv, there are I always do 2 modules and only 2 modules. I'll install cpanm. If you haven't used cpanm, it's like a big breath of fresh air. It's amazing because it skips all the tests and security checks. It's just really fast. It's great. So you install cpanm, and perlbrew has exactly the same command. It's perlbrew install cpanm, because cpanm, it has to be bootstrapped in some way because it is an installer, and to put the installer in the right place requires a special install instruction. And once you've done that, now you can use cpanm and install Carton. So now you have a perfect, pristine Perl with these two, with cPanM and Carton on there, and that's the only time that I ever touch any of my Perls that I have installed using plenv. And I'll show you why that is in just a moment. So this is plenv. It looks a lot like perlbrew, except there are no libraries. There's no way to manage dependencies and things like that. It's really just for switching Perls, but it does it really well. Let's look at it for a moment. Okay, I'm going to get back into here. Okay, 5.18.2, this is my system Perl again. Let's make a directory called project 1 again. And we'll change directories to project 1. We're gonna plenv versions. Okay, so these are the ones that I installed earlier yesterday actually. So I'm gonna echo 5.18.4 into a file called Perl version. And now, when I say, now we're looking at 5.18.4. I can change my Perl version like that. And I'm using 520.1. Anytime I move into this directory, I will get that version of Perl. If I move out of the directory, back on the system Perl. Very nice. It's cool. Let me show you how it does this. So the line you add to, I think everything's on bash RC on this one. This is Ubuntu. Where does this go? Sorry. I thought I was prepared for that question. No. Oh, it's profile. I forgot. Ubuntu shells are funny. So at the bottom there, you'll see 2 lines. Whoa. So this one exports, it adds to your path variable. That's not a big deal. And this bottom one is the magic here. So what? Okay, so what is plenv init? Plenv init dash spits out, it sources a bash file and creates a new bash function called plenv. So that when I say plenv, that's what I'm actually calling, is that little thing there. This is where you do your checkout. Git node. So that's the repo there that I've checked out. Inside of here are build, all the versions that I built, all the versions that have been installed. Shims is kind of interesting. So for every version of Perl that you install, it installs, it wraps everything that would have been installed into bin and puts it here. And all of these, you can see, they're symlink. They're all very short. So if we look at pcar, cat shims, they're all the same. They all look just like this. They're just a little bash wrapper. What it does is it checks to see what directory it's in, looks for the Perl version file, and then runs the right command. So it's some shell trickery, but it's very elegant. Yeah, very cool stuff. Okay, so that is, anything else with, anyone want to see something else with plenv? Is that good? Did I answer your question? Okay. So that's plenv. Carton is a Perl module, and you can install it using cpan. As we saw before, you just cpan-m. Carton comes in. It has a fairly thick dependency hierarchy of its own, but once it's installed, it's done. Carton gives you per project dependency management. I'll list all the virtues and then show you what all these virtues mean in practice. So it's easy to deploy and keep up to date. Carton is trivial to use with existing projects. I took a project that lived on this clunky system that had been a mishmash of things that were installed via packages on the system as root, and then some locally ad hoc managed modules, and was able to duplicate the environment using Carton in about 15 minutes. Trial and error, but I got all the modules, so it was easy. It works with your version control system. This is the best part of it, is you can check in the config file. There's 2 config files, and they're fairly small. And now anyone else who checks your projects out will get those config files, and they can then run a command, Carton install, and get exactly the same setup that you have. All of the same modules, the same versions, everything. It's amazing. One of the big drawbacks of Carton is it does not work well. I haven't seen it work well with embedded pearls. It is, if you read the documentation, it says, we haven't figured this out. I'm sure it's possible. Everything's possible. It's just code. But so you may want to avoid that. If you're using a heavy mod Perl or other kind of embedded Perl environment, it might not work as well as you'd wished. So now your dependencies are version controlled. You can roll forward, backward. You can use git bisect to find regressions because your modules are also version controlled. It's great. Okay, so this is there are 2 files. Actually, there's just the one file. This is the only file you have to make using Carton. It's called cpan file. It's a plain text file that has these lines like these in it. The word requires, and then the name of your module. You can also add a version, so if you want to get a specific version. And that's it. Once you've done that, so here's a shell. We cat cpan file, that's what's in it. We say Carton install. The system will go out. Carton will go and read your cpan file. You can see it finds all of the dependencies. So xutils make maker was a dependency of any event. Then we got any event. Before Beanstalk could be installed, we needed, the 4 modules above it. 7 distributions installed, etc. And then now you can say, you can do your perldoc, and you can see it got installed into a directory called local, and that's where Carton stores all of its stuff. And we'll look at a demonstration of that momentarily. So plenv plus Carton kind of looks like perlbrew, except that the modules are not dependent anymore on the Perl itself. They sort of are. I guess if you were to install with Carton some excess modules, things that needed to be compiled and were built against a specific Perl, then they would be a little bit more tied down, and that can happen. So if that were the case and you switched plenv Perls, you would need to run Carton install again. But as we'll see, Carton install runs pretty briskly here. Let's get back to here. Okay, so let's go into my Carton demo directory. Okay, so here, you know what, I'm just going to, Perl version, that's 5.10.1. Oh, because we love 5.10 at Bluehost. Everyone using CentOS loves 5.10, right? I don't know why they did that. Okay, I'm going to blow it all away. Let's do this. Carton demo. Okay, I have no safety net tonight. Here, Carton demo. Okay, empty. We're going to Perl v grep built. Okay. Echo 5.20. Let's do 5.10 again. Perl version. Perl. All right, we're on 5.10 now. And we're going to do this. Cpan file. Somebody give me a module they want to see install. It's not Catalyst, because I did Catalyst earlier yesterday, and it had 124 dependencies. It took a while. JSON. What? JSON XS? Anything else? Give me a couple. CGI X app. Good one. What else? Date time? Oh, I don't know how that's going to be a big one. What? Text?
Oh, that is a big text TSV.
Text. CSV. Okay. Hey, Rob. Okay, that's pretty. Anyone you want to throw out a module? One of yours?
Inline C. It's gonna,
Does it have a lot of dependencies?
no, but it's,
See how it goes. All right, it's a good test. Okay, so you can see here that I've got just the two files. I installed plenv, and when I installed plenv, I also installed Carton as its. So I installed Carton at the time I installed plenv. That was the only module with cpnm that I installed on that. There are no other than that. This is a stock 510.1 from perl.com or org, wherever that comes from. Okay, so here we go. Carton install. We'll time it, see how it goes. Inline C.
So installing all this in your local?
Yeah, well, I'll show you in just a second. Text CSV, common sense. Done. 19 seconds. All right, that wasn't too bad. And now we look and see what we've got here. There's this local directory. Let's look in the local directory. Oh, it's a standard. It's like if you'd done perl makefile and then prefix some directory. Find type F, print, oops, local. So you can see it all gets installed here. There's even bin. It creates a bin directory. And we can use those. I'll show you how to use those in a second. So right now, we've got there's also a little cache directory with a bunch of tarballs in it. That's cool. There's actually a use for that in just a moment. I'll show you. So CGIX all got installed pretty quick. So now, this is probably the biggest drawback to Carton, and that is that when you want to use the Carton environment, you have to type the word Carton and then exec. So this is where I would do something like, if I did a Perl doc right here, what was one we installed? Inline C. We don't see it because, why? Because perl-v says, my inc array is 510. So if I say Carton exec perl-v, I get extra, I get local. That's what happens. So that's what Carton does, it's an installation system, but it's also a runtime environment that when you want to get into that installation that you just made, you do that. So I just learned this trick today, and I wish I would have known this a couple years ago, but it's a good trick. So you can actually do this. Carton exec shell. And now any commands we run will be under that, have that environment built into it. So now I can say perl doc inline C. Ah, so nice. Look at that. And I can say, what was one of the commands it installed? JSON XS. I don't know what JSON XS does. Oh, there goes it, pretty prints. Okay, so that's Carton. Carton is pretty cool. Here's something else that's kind of cool about Carton. You can say Carton bundle. I don't know if this is going to work because I'm inside of a shell. Let's do it this way. Carton bundle. What this just did is it made a vendor directory. And the vendor directory is a bin with a fat packed carton and a cache with all my CPAN. All the tarballs are in there. So what we just built with Carton bundle is an exact duplicate of the dependencies that we just have installed. And now I can do something like rsync. Let's pretend this is on some other system. Exclude local because we don't want local. But I'll say something like this, and then Carton demo 2. And let's pretend that this is a different server. And so we've just done like a make install or whatever, and it rsynced all of this stuff up there. We don't have to do, well, we still have to do Carton install, but let's pretend that this doesn't have internet access. So what we can do, Carton install cached and deployment. Both of these have two different effects. Cached will read its modules. It won't go out to the internet to get them. It will read it from the vendor bundle that you just built. And deployment will look at the snapshot file and make sure that all the versions are exactly the same as the ones that you gave it. So let's do this one. I think this VM's on a pretty fast connection, so the amount of time for downloading those modules was probably the least part. Oh, 13, we saved 6 seconds because we didn't have to download them because they were already there. So Carton has some pretty neat tricks up its sleeve. And I think that's all I got for Carton demo. So here, I've used all of these methods multiple years. If you're doing system Perl or ad hoc environments, I recommend you stop, in my opinion. There's better ways. perlbrew is great in the situation where you have, if you have a project and you're deploying it on multiple systems that have different versions of Perl, perlbrew really is probably the perfect tool for that. It lets you, switch between those quickly and test between them quickly. It's nice that way. If you also have multiple projects, not so much. It also does not help you with any kind of dependency. Sometimes I forget to use perlbrew, use, or switch, and I've just posed an entire library, and of course there's no repeatable way to get it back to all the versions that I had before, which is very disappointing if you've ever done it. Okay, I like plenv and Carton for situations where if you're using lots of projects and you don't have to switch Perls often. It's not a pain to switch Perls, you just have to run your Carton install again. You saw how quick that was. If you've got a lot of dependencies, it's going to take a little bit longer. It's not going to be as quick or brisk as a perlbrew switch, but it's not horrible. So if you really are not switching Perl versions, but you are switching projects a lot, this is absolutely the way to go. Because every project you CD into, you're going to have the right Perl and all the right dependencies, and you can deploy it exactly how you have it right there. Anyone who else is working on the project can git clone your project or CVS check out your project, run Carton install, and they will have exactly the same modules that you had. Your intentions are perfect there. Yeah, and that's it. So you could use Carton with perlbrew, but now you're not using perlbrew for what it was designed for. You're using it more like plenv, so why not use plenv? And that is it. That's all I have for tonight. I had a question. You could also do this with Docker, and I didn't have time to set that up tonight. I was wondering if anyone would be really interested in that, maybe for another time where we do some dependency isolation with Docker. Now, this isn't a Docker group, and that's more of a DevOps kind of question. But
I can't.
okay. You could say no, because this is definitely a Perl group. I realize that, and it's not a Docker group, so, but it would be Perl-oriented Docker. I don't know. So, okay, that's it. Questions?